You know, it feels like we're living in a new golden age of space exploration. It seems like every week there's another spectacular launch lighting up the sky. But behind all this incredible progress, there's a problem hiding in plain sight. And it's one that could seriously threaten the future of our journey to the stars.
Yeah, the hard truth is that our big rush to conquer the final frontier is creating a massive environmental crisis. And not just way up in orbit, but right here on our own planet. So before we can even talk about solutions, we've got to get real about the scale of the problem. Because the final frontier, well, it's quickly becoming our highest junkyard.
So what's driving this? It's what everyone's calling the new space boom. It's not just a few government agencies anymore. Now you've got more countries in the game, more private companies, and these massive projects, these mega constellations from companies like Starlink and OneWeb. It all adds up to more stuff being launched into orbit than ever before.
And all that explosive growth in space activity, well, it's created a really significant and growing problem. A literal junkyard of debris just floating right there over our heads.
So, why should you care? Well, because all that junk in orbit poses a serious threat to the satellites we depend on every single day. We're talking about things like GPS navigation, weather forecasting, global communication, the whole shebang.
And listen, the problem isn't just up there. All this space activity causes a lot of pollution right here on Earth, from the huge emissions we see during rocket launches to chemical contamination at the launch sites themselves.
Okay, so we've got a junkyard in orbit and pollution on the ground. What's the plan? Well, thankfully, the space community is starting to rally around a potential solution.
To tackle all these issues head-on, the global space community is pointing towards this concept called Green Space Technology, or GST for short. It's a really promising idea, but there's a catch.
And that catch is, for the longest time, nobody could quite agree on what green space technology actually means. And this has been a central problem, right? I mean, how can policymakers and companies work together to solve the issue if they're not even speaking the same language? And this confusion is captured perfectly right here. For some countries, green space tech meant using satellites to help with sustainability on Earth. But for others, it was all about making the act of going to space more sustainable. They were basically talking about two completely different things.
So to finally get everyone on the same page, researchers came up with this really clear, comprehensive definition. Green space technology is any space tech that either has a minimal environmental impact or actively helps preserve the environment. And here's the key part, both here on Earth and up in space.
Now, what's so great about this new definition is that it lets us sort all these different ideas into two simple, logical categories. You can think of them as clusters. And this simple framework really clarifies everything. You've got the Earth cluster, which is all about using technology in space to help us be sustainable on Earth. And then you have the space cluster, which is about making our activities in space more sustainable. It's a simple distinction, but it's powerful because it helps us track progress on two very different fronts. So let's look at the Earth cluster first. This is stuff we're all pretty familiar with. Earth observation satellites that keep an eye on our planet, navigation systems like GPS, and the satellite telecommunications that connect our entire world.
And these technologies are already having a huge green impact down here. They let us monitor climate change in real time. They help ships find more fuel-efficient routes. And they even allow farmers to use water and fertilizer way more precisely, which cuts down on waste.
Okay, now let's flip over to this space cluster. This category is all about technologies designed to clean up our act in orbit. Think of things like space garbage trucks to remove debris, cleaner rocket fuels, services that can repair satellites in orbit, and even designing spacecraft with greener, recyclable materials from the get-go.
So the goal here is really twofold. First, clean up the mess we've already made, and second, make sure that future missions don't repeat the same mistakes. It's all about preserving the space environment for generations of explorers to come.
Here's a quick summary that really breaks down the key differences. The Earth cluster, it's all about sustainability on Earth. It uses tech that's already mainstream, and it pretty much impacts everyone. In contrast, the space cluster is focused on the sustainability of space itself. A lot of the tech is still in its early stages, and the main players are the spacefaring nations and their agencies. This tells us we need totally different policies and investments for each cluster.
Now, this framework is fantastic, but even with this new clarity, it's not like the problem is solved. There are still some pretty major challenges we need to watch out for as we move forward.
And probably the biggest danger ahead is a practice you've probably heard of called greenwashing.
Basically, it's the act of creating a lot of green talk to look good, but without taking any real, concrete action to back it up.
So what does that look like in the space industry? Well, imagine a company heavily promoting a satellite because its data helps monitor deforestation. That's a clear Earth cluster benefit, right? But what if they completely ignore the fact that the satellite has no plan for deorbiting? That means it's just going to become more space junk. That, right there, is a classic case of greenwashing.
And that brings us to the final, critical question. We now have a clear framework, a path to move forward responsibly, but the choice is still ours. As we continue this incredible journey to the stars, are we going to be wise enough to protect our orbital home? Can we avoid repeating the same mistakes in space that we've made down here on Earth? You know, the future of exploration just might depend on it.